He ate my bloody brownies, so I let him think he got AIDS. Sometimes revenge doesn't need yelling, threats, or even confrontation. Sometimes, it just needs silence, timing, and letting someone's own imagination do all the work. Because when someone steals your food, destroys your cookware, and helps themselves to blood-soaked brownies, well, you let karma handle it, with a little nudge. This happened in the mid-1990s, which is important, because back then, HIV and AIDS were surrounded by fear, misinformation, and intense stigma. People didn't understand transmission very well, and panic traveled faster than facts. At the time, my husband and I were young, newly together, and extremely broke. Like, living in our car, then upgrading to a room with walls, broke. We rented a single room in what used to be the servants' quarters of an old Victorian house. Technically attached, barely legal, located in a neighborhood where sirens were just background noise. The landlord was unstable, the wiring was questionable, and the rent was cheap, which was the only thing that mattered. Still, to us, it felt like a palace. A few details matter here. First, I love to cook. Always have. Even when we were poor, cooking was how I showed love and kept us feeling human. Second, my husband is very skinny. Naturally skinny. Always has been. Third, our roommate. Let's call him Kevin. And if you know a Kevin, you already know. Kevin wasn't evil. He was just oblivious. The kind of person who used other people's stuff without asking, ate food that wasn't his, and somehow never understood why anyone might be annoyed. Weaponized cluelessness before we had a name for it. One afternoon, I made a pan of brownies. Nothing fancy, boxed mix, but still a small luxury when every dollar mattered. A few days later, they were getting a little stale. My husband decided to cut them up. Now, here's where things go wrong. Instead of a butter knife, he grabs a huge kitchen knife. The knife slips. The Pyrex dish doesn't forgive. And suddenly, blood. Everywhere. Deep cut. Right into the pad of his thumb. We wrapped it in a towel, tossed the brownies into the sink, and rushed him to the ER for stitches. In the chaos, I didn't think to rinse them off. Because, you know, who would eat brownies out of the sink? The discovery 1 minute. Later that night, we got home. My husband was sore but fine. Stitched up. Exhausted. I went into the kitchen. And froze. Half the brownies were gone. Gone. I glanced toward Kevin's room. Door closed. Light on. I felt sick, but honestly, I didn't even say anything. I just thought, ew. Gross. Whatever. Until a few days later. See, I had been saving. For 3 paychecks, I scraped together enough money to buy myself one small joy. A brand new nonstick pan. Nothing fancy. But to me, it was a treasure. I got home, excited, went to open the package. And the packaging was gone. The pan, scratched to hell. Deep gouges. Like someone had scrambled eggs in it with a fork. Kevin. And something in me snapped. Not yelling. Not confronting. Just clarity. I decided to wait. About a week later, Kevin came home. I was standing in the only doorway between the kitchen and the living room. Perfect. I looked up and said, calmly, Kevin, you remember those brownies in the sink? He nodded. I continued, did you eat any of them? He smiled. Yeah, they were pretty good. I figured since they were already in the sink, you wouldn't mind. And that's when I told the story. Slowly, carefully, every detail. The knife slipping, the deep cut, the blood everywhere, the visit. I watched his face change. White, then green, then panic. He swallowed hard, and asked, can you get AIDS from eating blood? That did it. Because suddenly my skinny husband wasn't just skinny, he was suspect. I tilted my head, put on my most worried expression, and said, I don't know, but I guess it's possible. Kevin didn't say another word. He shoved past me, ran to the bathroom, and threw up. For a long time, I stood there and smiled. Kevin barely spoke to us after that. He never ate our food again. And you know what? I never mentioned the pan. Because sometimes, justice doesn't need confrontation. Sometimes, it just needs patience, and letting someone live with their own choices. If this story made you laugh, cringe, or rethink stealing someone else's food, hit that like button. Tell us in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed? And if you enjoy stories where karma shows up right on time, don't forget to subscribe, because the best revenge stories, they're always real.